Should the SEC suspend Nate Oats? Does Nate Oats also hate kids, right? No, I'm kidding. But should the SEC take action here? In case you missed it, you can go back to our social media at SEC Unfiltered, and this will be probably the fourth or fifth clip down, if you will. Early on, about halfway through the first half, in last night's Alabama-Missouri game, which was a very, very chippy game, by the way, there was a little bit of a scuffle, right, between Bama and Mizzou players, and Alabama head coach Nate Oats comes over, okay? Alabama head coach Nate Oats comes over and moves a Missouri player out of the way, pushes him out of the way. Now, as you can imagine, this has caused a lot of chatter on social media, a lot of folks feeling some type of way about this, and I don't blame them, right? It's interesting to see the mixed reactions, but I think this is a great example of if it was your coach for your favorite team and the same situation happened, right? You'd probably see a lot of people saying, oh, well, he's just defending our guys. He's defending our team. Yeah, that's why we love him. Because that's what Alabama fans, for the most part, are doing right now, okay? But then you're seeing a lot of other people. I've also seen folks from the coaching world, right? Whatever level it is, talk about you never put your hands on a player. You never put your hands on a player. Should the SEC suspend Nate Oats for this? Because it was not a great look, guys. Like, I can watch this video. I understand what Nate Oats is trying to do here. He is trying to clear up this fiasco. He is trying to separate the Missouri player who's talking trash from his team, what have you. But you just can't be caught in that situation. Like, the referee is right there. The referee is standing right there. Let him handle it. Let him handle it. It's never going to sit well when a coach is putting his hands on a player from the opposite team, especially, guys, right? It's never going to sit well. Do I think they should suspend him? I think a game could work. I don't think this is something where you should suspend Nate Oats for the entire season. But you know what else? This really just Nate Oats is already. I have no reason to dislike Nate Oats. I don't necessarily dislike him, but he's so easily disliked. You know what I mean? Like, you go back to what happened last year with, what was the kid's name? Brandon, whatever his name was, with the shooting stuff, right? All the off-court madness that happened last year. You listen to this guy, the way he talks, then you see something like this. It's very easy to not like Nate Oats. So I think a game suspension could help. I think it could work. I don't think he should be suspended for like the entire year or anything, but you cannot put your hands on a player from the opposing team. You can't do it. You can't do it, man. It's more about, honestly, it's just a terrible look. It's a terrible, terrible look for Nate Oats. A guy that, I think folks already have their own reasons to not necessarily look upon this guy favorably, right? I think, people already feel some type of way about him. And then so to have something like this happen, not a great look for Nate Oats. So, again, Bama gets the win, by the way, as we actually talk about basketball. They got the big win, 93-75. I mean, we thought they would. Mizzou not all that great. Alabama, fantastic offensive performance. But I wonder what the SEC will do with Nate Oats. I wonder. Because, again, you just can't put your hands on a player, man. You can't do it. You got to control. Let the referees handle it. In your position, it's not going to end well when you do that. It's just not going to end well. So, that being said, guys, looking back on that, all of the rest of the action, like I mentioned, guys, Bama gets a big to 75 win over Missouri. Again, a game that was really, really chippy all throughout. You look at this game, guys, what's interesting, Mark Sears he's held to 9 points in this game. Estrada with 21, Griffin with 21, Nelson with 13, Wrightsell Jr. with 11, Pringle with 10. I mean, they are just, guys, they're so deep. They have so many guys, so much talent. We're starting to see Bama get into somewhat of a role. Missouri, not all that great, but again, the offensive side, that's going to give them a chance, guys, to win every single game they play. Now, the first game of the day that was moved up, it was funny. I was doing some editing, looked at my TV. I was like, is this a replay? Like Tennessee and Florida are playing right now. 5 p.m. Eastern tip-off yesterday, though. All hail Dalton Knecht. All hail Dalton Knecht. This guy might be the best player in college basketball, guys. Tennessee wins 85-66. I thought Florida would keep this thing close. I really, really did. But Tennessee, on the home floor, Dalton Knecht, guys, 39 points in this game. 39 points. He shot 57% from the field. He was 4 of 6 from three-land and 9 for 9 at the charity stripe. 39 points. Also 8 rebounds, which Rick Barnes, in case you missed the clip, made the joke after the game. Hey, congratulations to Dalton. He had 8 rebounds. And I think I saw something that's the first time, I think it's the most points. He has the most points scored over a 3-game period, I think, in Tennessee history now, if I recall correctly. So Dalton Knecht is fantastic. All of a sudden has just turned into a lethal threat, the leader of Tennessee basketball. Adu also had 19 points, by the way. Ziegler was 7. But it was the Dalton Knecht show. I mean, it was the Dalton Knecht show for sure. Incredible performance by this dude. There is nobody hotter in college basketball right now than Dalton Knecht at Tennessee. What he's doing is absolutely incredible. Guys, Georgia gets a big road win over South Carolina, 74-69, guys. Gamecocks were a 6.5-point favorite in this game. 6.5-point favorite on the home floor. That's a tough loss for South Carolina, guys. That's a really, really tough loss for Lamont Paris's team. Now, I know Gamecock fans, they're going to point and they're going to talk about the referees. And I mean, I saw it and heard it all on social media about the referees jobbing South Carolina. And it was the Gamecocks versus Georgia and the refs. Guys, here's a crazy, crazy stat for you. You ready? Georgia's win over South Carolina at Colonial Life Arena. That was the first time since 2016 Georgia won in Columbia. 2,875 days. That is insane. I mean, South Carolina has owned Georgia basketball over the last couple of years, right? And I know, again, South Carolina fans will point to the refs. There was a flagrant foul that was called on Michi Johnson that was questionable, to say the least. But, guys, death taxes in South Carolina men's basketball not being able to make free throws. 15 missed free throws in a 5-point loss. Hindsight is 2020, and I almost feel like at times we can harp on it too much, but it's just hard not to harp on those things. When you go back and you look and you lost by 5, you missed 15 free throws. That game you could have not only won but covered had you just made your free throws. On the Georgia side of things, guys, what a win for Georgia, man. I mean, that was huge after, you really miss a big-time opportunity against Tennessee over the weekend. You had them down on your home floor. You go into Columbia as nearly a touchdown underdog, if you will. You see what I did there? But you go into Columbia 6.5-point underdogs and just pull off the straight-up upset. I mean, I thought for Georgia, it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't flashy. They shot 38% from the field, 23% for 3. Guys, this really was a free-throw game, though. I mean, you look at South Carolina again, 17 of 32. Georgia, 25 of 32. They made 8 more free throws. They won the game by 5. Like that, it's wild to think about that can make that big of a difference in a ball game, but it really did in this one. It really, really did in this one. Also, guys, Georgia winning the battle at the glass, the rebounding battle. right? 45 total rebounds to South Carolina's 36. Second chance points were huge for Georgia, 18 offensive rebounds. They were able to secure 27 defensive, but a lot of second chance points for Georgia. And I think what this probably does for South Carolina, Lamont Paris, there's a lot of ball to be played. Does this somewhat reset the expectations, though, for people? And here's the thing. For South Carolina, here's the thing. Not making the NCAA tournament should not be viewed as a failure. It just shouldn't. That would have been an incredible season. It still could happen. Don't get me wrong. That was a really brutal loss last night. But an NIT appearance in year 2 of Lamont Paris, I think most folks agreed this is a team that was picked to finish dead last. An NIT appearance would be a great step in year 2 of Lamont Paris. That logic still applies, in my opinion, despite the start for South Carolina. So I know Gamecock fans don't want to hear that after a really tough L, but I do think the season can still be successful. But guys, in a league like this, teams are beating up on each other. You know, games like this can happen. And again, what a win for Georgia. Really, we got to give Georgia a lot of credit for that victory, going on the road, winning straight up. And guys, how about Arkansas finally getting off the schneid? I looked at this game yesterday, guys, and I felt like, you know what? Arkansas at Bud Walton Arena, man. I know Texas A&M just pulled off the upset against Kentucky, but Arkansas at Bud Walton Arena, you never know. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to pick Arkansas just because of what we had seen to this point. Hogs get a massive W, 78-77 over Texas A&M. Guys, how about this? Wade Taylor for Texas A&M, 41 points in this game. 41 points. Mark for Arkansas had 35 of his own. Ellis with 15, Brazil with 8, Davenport with 8, Davis with 7. Arkansas makes that last-second buzzer beater practically shot to win the ball game. I mean, it don't matter how it happened, right? For Eric Musselman's team, for a team that was desperately looking for a W, this was one you had to have. And now I wonder, does this spark Arkansas? Can they use this and go on a run? Their next game, Saturday at Bud Walton Arena against South Carolina. So that's going to be a really interesting contest, right? That's going to be a really interesting contest that could send each of those teams in this season maybe in different directions. No matter the result, right? Could send them in opposite directions. But for an Arkansas team that had struggled, looked like they were dead in the water, you felt like there's too much talent with this group not to wake up at some point. And finally at Bud Walton Arena last night, the Hogs show signs of life.